Life at 40 was going well for me. As a successful engineer, I had built a stable career and created a comfortable home for myself and my younger brother, Andrew. After our parents died in that car crash 12 years ago, I took guardianship of Andrew when he was just 12 and I was 24. I worked hard to provide him with everything he needed, including our spacious 4-bedroom house that I purchased 5 years ago. Little did I know that his new wife, Jessica, would have no idea who actually owned the walls around her. Where are you watching from today? Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I handled being called a leech in my own house. The journey of raising Andrew was never easy, but it was filled with meaningful moments that strengthened our bond as brothers. After our parents passed away, I immediately stepped up despite being only 24 years old myself. I had just started my engineering career, barely making enough for a small apartment, but suddenly found myself responsible for a grieving 12-year-old boy. Those early years tested us both as we learned to navigate our new reality together. I worked overtime for years, saving every penny possible, while ensuring Andrew had everything he needed for school. We shared a tiny 2-bedroom apartment in a not-so-great neighborhood, but I promised him things would get better. During that time, I developed a meticulous financial plan focused on building enough savings to provide us with a real home. Every bonus, every raise went straight into my house fund. Andrew watched me spend weekends poring over real estate listings, budgets, and mortgage calculators instead of dating or socializing like most guys my age. When Andrew turned 17, my hard work finally paid off. I secured a mortgage for a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a nice suburban neighborhood with good schools. The day we moved in, Andrew hugged me tighter than he had since our parents died. That moment made every sacrifice worthwhile. The house was entirely in my name since I had the credit history and down payment, but I added Andrew to the rental agreement to help him build his credit. I wanted him to have every advantage I could provide. Our relationship flourished in that house. We established traditions like Sunday barbecues and monthly movie marathons. I supported Andrew through college, helping with applications and celebrating when he got accepted to State University with a partial scholarship. I covered the rest of his tuition without hesitation. Seeing him graduate with a business degree was one of my proudest moments. Andrew found a good entry-level position at a marketing firm thanks to a connection from my network. He offered to contribute to household expenses, which I appreciated but kept minimal. I wanted him to build his own savings and find his footing as a young professional. Our dynamic worked perfectly as we respected each other's space while maintaining our close bond. Throughout those years, Andrew brought home various girlfriends. I always made them feel welcome cooking dinner when they visited and giving them privacy when appropriate. As his big brother, I wanted to see him happy in all aspects of life, including romance. Some relationships lasted months, others only weeks, but I never interfered with his choices. Then, Jessica entered the picture. Andrew met her at a company event 2 years ago, and I noticed immediately how his face lit up when he talked about her. She worked in the accounting department and impressed him with her confidence and ambition. When Andrew finally brought her home for dinner, I went all out with a 3-course meal and my best bottle of wine. Jessica initially seemed delightful. She complimented our home, asked thoughtful questions about my engineering projects, and seemed genuinely interested in our family photos. She laughed at my jokes and thanked me profusely for the meal. I caught Andrew watching her with such adoration that it warmed my heart. For the first time, I truly believed my brother had found someone special. As they continued dating, Jessica visited more frequently. She would sometimes bring dessert or a bottle of wine, small gestures that showed consideration. She and Andrew would help with dishes after dinner, and we would all watch movies or play board games together. Those evenings felt like we were building a real family again, something I had missed deeply since losing our parents. 6 months into their relationship, Andrew confided in me about his plans to propose. He was nervous, but certain that Jessica was the one. I helped him shop for the ring, offering advice and emotional support. When he asked if I thought our parents would have approved, I assured him they would have loved Jessica just as I did. The hope and excitement in his eyes reminded me of when he was a kid on Christmas morning. The proposal went perfectly. Andrew took Jessica to the botanical gardens, where they had their first date, and she said yes without hesitation. When they returned to our house afterward, I had champagne chilling and congratulatory decorations set up. We celebrated until late into the night, toasting to their future together. Jessica hugged me and called me the best future brother-in-law a girl could ask for. Everything seemed perfect, and I was genuinely happy that Andrew had found his person. The subtle shift in Jessica's attitude began almost immediately after the engagement. The first hint came during dinner the following week, when she casually mentioned how unusual it was for grown brothers to still live together. I laughed it off, explaining our unique circumstances, but noticed she did not smile in return. Within a month, Jessica began spending more time at our house, gradually bringing over her belongings. One evening, while Andrew was picking up takeout, she sat across from me at the kitchen counter and asked how long I planned to live in the house after they married. Her tone was light, but her eyes held a calculating look I had not noticed before. I explained that we had never discussed me moving out, as the house was spacious enough for all of us. Jessica nodded but responded, "Do not you think a man your age should have his own place?" By now, Andrew would never say it, but having his big brother around might make starting our marriage awkward. That conversation left me unsettled, but I brushed it aside, believing she was just adjusting to the idea of married life. However, 3 weeks later, while passing by the guest room where Jessica was on the phone, I overheard her telling her mother, "Once we are married, that bachelor will have to find his own place. This house is perfect for starting a family, and I am not raising kids with Uncle Tony down the hall." The words stung more than I cared to admit. I had opened my home and heart to her, yet she was already planning to push me out. Still, I kept quiet, not wanting to create tension or ruin Andrew's happiness. I told myself perhaps she was just nervous about the wedding and would come around eventually. As wedding preparations intensified, Jessica became increasingly territorial about the house. She began rearranging furniture in the living room without asking, claiming she was just trying things out for after the wedding. She referred to our home as our future place when speaking to friends on the phone, never acknowledging my presence or ownership. The wedding itself was an elaborate affair, with Jessica insisting on top-tier everything. When Andrew mentioned budget concerns, I offered to contribute significantly to give them the celebration they wanted. I covered the cost of the venue, the photographer, and the honeymoon as my gift to them. Jessica accepted without much gratitude, simply saying it was the least an established older brother could do. During the reception, Jessica's maid of honor gave a speech mentioning how excited the couple was to start their lives together in their beautiful home. I noticed several guests glancing at me with confusion, clearly aware that I lived there too. Later, when I overheard someone asking Jessica about living arrangements, she replied, "Oh, Tony will be moving out soon. He just needs some time to find his own place." After returning from their 2-week honeymoon in Hawaii, the newlyweds moved Jessica's remaining belongings into our home. Within days, Jessica began referring to it as our house in conversations with neighbors and delivery people, never clarifying the actual ownership situation. One particularly painful moment came when she began talking about giving the master bedroom to the actual owners of the house. Until then, I had occupied the largest bedroom, as I had chosen and purchased the house. Andrew had always been fine with his slightly smaller room. Now Jessica suggested it was time for that to change. Tony, Andrew, and I were thinking that as the married couple, it might make sense for us to take the master bedroom, she said during dinner one night. There is more closet space for the two of us, and the attached bathroom would give us privacy. Andrew looked uncomfortable, but nodded in agreement. It does make sense, Tony. You do not need as much space as the two of us." Though hurt, I agreed to switch rooms that weekend. I told myself it was a reasonable request from newlyweds, even as I realized Jessica was systematically establishing dominance in what she clearly viewed as her territory. As I moved my belongings to the smaller bedroom, I noticed Jessica watching from the hallway with a satisfied smile that never quite reached her eyes. My new bedroom arrangement marked the beginning of a steady erosion of my comfort in my own home. The smaller room faced the street, exposing me to traffic noise that the master bedroom had been shielded from. Jessica wasted no time, completely redecorating the master suite, removing all traces that I had ever occupied it. She replaced my simple navy bedding with an elaborate white duvet set and hung wedding photos where my engineering diplomas had once been. One Friday evening, I returned from work to find our usually quiet house filled with strangers drinking cocktails and playing loud music. Jessica had invited her coworkers over for an impromptu office party without mentioning it to me. When I found Andrew, he seemed surprised I was upset. "It is just a small get-together," he said, though there were at least 20 people crowded in our living room. The next morning, I gently suggested to Jessica that some advance notice would be appreciated before hosting large gatherings. She rolled her eyes and replied, "This is Andrew, and my home now too. We do not need permission to have friends over." I clarified that I was not asking for permission, just courtesy. Jessica huffed and walked away later, telling Andrew loudly enough for me to hear that I was being controlling and needed to adjust to not being the only man of the house anymore. These parties became a weekly occurrence, often lasting until 2 or 3 in the morning. I would try to sleep with a pillow over my head, while strangers laughed and shouted below my bedroom. When I mentioned the noise to Andrew, he just shrugged and said Jessica needs to unwind after her stressful job. It is only one night a week. Jessica also began making cutting remarks about my personal life. When a colleague called on a Saturday, she answered my phone and later asked, "Do not you have any friends your own age? It is kind of sad that you only get calls from work people." Another time, when I mentioned planning to watch a movie, she commented, "That is what happens when you are a 40-year-old with no wife or kids. All that empty time to fill." These comments always came when Andrew was out of earshot. To his face, she maintained the pleasant demeanor she had shown during their courtship. The contrast was jarring and left me increasingly isolated, unable to express my concerns to my brother without seeming petty. The invasion of my personal space extended to my belongings as well. I would return home to find my craft beer missing from the refrigerator, only to see Jessica's friends drinking it during their gatherings. When I bought a specialized coffee machine for my morning brew, it mysteriously migrated from my personal shelf to the main kitchen counter where Jessica used it daily without asking. Most painful was when my personal items began disappearing entirely. The vintage record player that had belonged to our father vanished from the den. When I asked about it, Jessica casually mentioned she had put it in storage because it cluttered the entertainment center. Similarly, the framed photo of Andrew and me at our parents' last anniversary dinner was removed from the hallway wall in favor of Jessica's professional portraits. Meanwhile, Andrew grew increasingly distant. Our Sunday barbecue tradition fell by the wayside as Jessica scheduled brunches with her friends. Our movie nights disappeared as she insisted Andrew accompany her to social events with her coworkers. Even our simple morning coffee chats vanished as she required his help with various projects around the house exactly when we would normally catch up. The breaking point came 6 months after the wedding. I kept a box of family mementos in the hall closet memorabilia from our parents, including handwritten cards, our mother's scarf, and our father's college ring. These irreplaceable items connected us to our past, and the parents Andrew barely remembered. One day, I went to find our mother's recipe book to make her special lasagna for Andrew's birthday, only to discover the entire box missing. When I frantically asked Jessica about it, she looked annoyed and said I cleared out that closet last week. It was full of old junk collecting dust. "Those were family mementos," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Where did you put them?" She waved her hand dismissively. "I donated most of it. The closet needed organizing, and no one was using that stuff." The revelation that she had given away our parents' belongings, without even mentioning it, left me speechless. That night I tried to talk to Andrew about what happened, but Jessica interrupted, claiming she had only removed old papers and worn-out clothes, and that I was overreacting. Andrew, caught between us, suggested I was probably misremembering what was in the box. Looking into my brother's eyes, I no longer recognized the person I had raised. He had become Jessica's echo, incapable of seeing how she had systematically pushed me to the margins of our home and our relationship. That night I lay awake, wondering how much longer I could tolerate living as a stranger in the house I had worked so hard to provide. The ultimate confrontation happened after I returned from a 2-week engineering conference in Seattle. The timing had been perfect for Jessica, with Andrew simultaneously away on a business trip to Chicago. As I pulled into our driveway, exhaustion weighing on me after the long flight, I immediately sensed something was wrong. The curtains in my bedroom window had been changed to a floral pattern I would never have chosen. Entering the house, I called out but received no answer. I headed upstairs to my room, only to find the door locked. This was odd, since none of our bedroom doors had locks when I left. Confused, I knocked, thinking perhaps Jessica had friends staying over. No response. I tried the handle again, then noticed a small keyhole that definitely had not been there before. Concerned, I went to the garage to find my toolbox, thinking I would remove the doorknob if necessary. What I discovered instead left me momentarily speechless. All my belongings, furniture, clothes, books, electronics, had been haphazardly piled in the corner of the garage. Boxes were torn, some contents spilling onto the concrete floor. My computer monitor had a visible crack across the screen. I stood there processing the scene before me when I heard the kitchen door open. Jessica walked in carrying grocery bags, stopping abruptly when she saw me. "You are back early," she said, her tone flat. "I am back exactly when I said I would be," I replied, struggling to maintain composure. "What happened to my room?" Jessica set down her bags and crossed her arms. "Andrew and I have been talking. We are converting that room into a home office. You have been talking about getting your own place for months, so we figured it was time." This was a complete fabrication. I had never once mentioned moving out. "Where exactly am I supposed to sleep tonight?" I asked. Jessica shrugged. "We thought you might have made arrangements by now. There is a decent extended stay hotel on Maple Street. Honestly, Tony, it is time you found your own place. A 40-year-old man should not be living with his little brother and his wife." I took a deep breath. "Jessica, this is my house. I never agreed to move out." Her laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Your house. This is Andrew's house. His name is on the rental agreement. We have been letting you stay out of kindness, but enough is enough. You need your own life." I realized then that she truly believed Andrew owned the house simply because his name was on some paperwork. I had added him to the rental agreement years ago to help build his credit, but the mortgage and deed were solely in my name. "Jessica, I think there has been a misunderstanding." She cut me off. "The only misunderstanding is you thinking you can leech off your brother forever. He has been too nice to say anything, but I am not going to enable this any longer." As she spoke, her voice rose until she was nearly shouting. "You are a pathetic 40-year-old leech. Get out, this is Andrew. And my house now, I could not help it." Despite the gravity of the situation, I burst out laughing. The sheer absurdity of being called a leech in the house I had sacrificed so much to buy was darkly comical. "Try to make me," I said calmly, once I had composed myself. Jessica's face contorted with rage. "How dare you? This is our house." "No, Jessica," I replied firmly. "This is my house. I bought it. The mortgage is in my name. The deed is in my name. I have been paying for it for 5 years. She stared at me as if I had started speaking in tongues. "You are lying," she finally hissed. "Andrew told me this was his house. Andrew never told you that. You assumed, and he never corrected you. I added him to the rental agreement to help build his credit, but I own this house." Jessica's face went through a rapid series of expressions: shock, disbelief, anger, and finally defiance. Without another word, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "Hello. Yes, I need to report an intruder who refuses to leave my home," she said, glaring at me. "He is trespassing and threatening me." I simply stood there calm and collected, knowing what would happen next. Within 15 minutes, 2 police officers arrived at the door. Jessica rushed to them, playing the role of terrified homeowner with Oscar-worthy precision. "Officers, thank goodness you are here. This man refuses to leave our house and has been intimidating me. My husband is out of town, and I am scared for my safety." The older officer turned to me. "Sir, is there a problem here?" "There certainly is, officer," I replied. "I just returned from a business trip to find I have been locked out of my bedroom and all my possessions moved to the garage." "This is my house," Jessica interjected. "My husband Andrew's name is on the paperwork." "May I see some identification, sir?" the younger officer asked me. I provided my driver's license, which clearly showed the house address. "I also have the deed and mortgage statements right here." I retrieved a folder from my briefcase that I always kept important documents in. "As you can see, the house is solely in my name. I have owned it for 5 years." The officers reviewed the documents carefully, then turned to Jessica. "Ma'am, according to these legal documents, this gentleman is the legal owner of this property." Jessica's face drained of color. "That cannot be right. My husband, Andrew, is listed on a rental agreement, not the deed or mortgage," the older officer explained patiently. "Based on these documents, Mr. Anthony Wilson is the legal homeowner." "That is impossible," Jessica whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. "Ma'am, you have no right to remove the homeowner from his property or to lock him out of any room in the house," the younger officer stated firmly. "If there is a domestic dispute, you are welcome to find alternative accommodation, but you cannot force the legal property owner out of his home." Jessica's phone rang. It was Andrew, likely calling to check in after his meetings. She answered immediately, walking several steps away, but still within earshot. "Andrew, your brother, is here, claiming he owns our house," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "He has even convinced the police with some fake documents." There was a pause as Andrew presumably responded. "What do you mean? It is true." Jessica's voice rose sharply. "You told me this was our house." Another pause. "No, you never mentioned he owned it. You let me believe. How could you lie about something this important?" Her face contorted as she listened to whatever Andrew was saying. Without warning, she ended the call and turned back to us, her eyes blazing with humiliation and rage. "This changes everything," she spat. "Everything." After the police departed, Jessica stormed upstairs, slamming doors as she packed a suitcase. Within 30 minutes, she had called a rideshare and left without another word to me. The house fell into blessed silence for the first time in months. Andrew called me immediately after Jessica hung up on him. His voice was strained with panic and confusion. "Tony, what is happening?" "Jessica just called saying you claimed to own the house and got the police involved." I explained the situation, calmly detailing how I had returned to find myself locked out and my belongings moved to the garage. I told him about Jessica's reaction when I revealed I was the actual owner and her subsequent call to the police. There was a long silence before Andrew spoke again. "I never told her I owned the house," he said quietly. "But I realize now, I never corrected her when she assumed. I guess I thought it did not matter since we were all living there together." "It matters when your wife decides to throw me out of my own home," I replied, trying to keep the hurt from my voice. Andrew caught the earliest flight home, arriving the following morning with dark circles under his eyes. When he walked through the door, he looked around as if seeing the house for the first time. "I really messed up, did not I?" he said, dropping his bag by the door. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we had shared countless meals, conversations, and life decisions over the years. For the first time in months, it was just the two of us again. "Why did not you tell me Jessica was treating you this way?" Andrew asked, after I recounted the gradual changes in her behavior. "You were happy," I said simply. "I did not want to come between you and your wife." I kept hoping she would adjust, that things would get better. Andrew ran his hands through his hair, a gesture reminiscent of when he was a frustrated teenager. "I was blind," he admitted. "She would say things about you when we were alone, different from how she acted when you were around. I convinced myself she was just adjusting to living with my brother. I never imagined she would go this far." The day passed, with painful honesty between us. Andrew helped me move my belongings back into my room, apologizing repeatedly as we discovered damaged items among the hastily packed boxes. He looked particularly stricken when he saw our father's broken record player. "I will fix it," he promised carefully, gathering the pieces. 2 days later, Jessica returned with her mother to collect more of her things. She barely acknowledged me, speaking only to Andrew in clipped, cold sentences. Before leaving, she placed her house key on the counter with theatrical finality. "I have spoken with a lawyer," she informed Andrew. "Expect divorce papers by the end of the week. I will not be married to someone who let me believe such a fundamental lie." After she left, Andrew sat heavily on the couch. 6 months of marriage over just like that. I sat beside him, unsure what to say. Part of me felt responsible for the collapse of his marriage, even knowing that the foundation had been built on Jessica's misconceptions and Andrew's omissions. "Do you want to try to work it out with her?" I asked, prepared to do whatever necessary to support his happiness, even if that meant actually moving out. Andrew shook his head slowly. "No. This situation just revealed who she really is." I kept seeing glimpses of it, but making excuses. "The way she treated you in your own home, the home you bought for us, shows her true character. I do not want to be with someone capable of that kind of disrespect and entitlement." Over the following weeks, Andrew and I rebuilt not just our living arrangement, but our relationship. We cleared out the changes Jessica had made, returning furniture to its original positions and hanging family photos back on the walls. Andrew insisted I take back the master bedroom, but I declined. Some changes I decided were worth keeping. A year has passed since that explosive confrontation in my garage. The divorce was finalized months ago, with Jessica getting remarkably little, since there were no joint assets and the marriage had been so brief. Andrew has slowly returned to his former self, though now with a wisdom and appreciation that only comes from difficult experience. Our home feels like ours again. We reinstated our Sunday barbecues and movie nights. I had our father's record player professionally restored, and now the sounds of his old jazz collection once again fill our living room on lazy weekend afternoons. The most profound change has been in our communication. We talk openly now about everything, addressing issues before they fester. Andrew insisted on paying a more substantial portion of the household expenses, saying it was time he took genuine responsibility rather than just accepting my generosity. I have started dating Sarah, a civil engineer I met at a professional conference. She understands family loyalty, having raised her own younger sister after their parents divorced. When she visits, she asks thoughtful questions about our family photos and genuinely enjoys our brother's banter. Andrew approves wholeheartedly, telling me privately that Sarah sees me for the extraordinary brother I am. As for Andrew, he has approached dating again with caution and new insight. He recently met Laura through a volunteer program we joined together. Unlike Jessica, Laura values family connections and treats both of us with genuine warmth and respect. What I learned through this ordeal is that sometimes we must weather storms to recognize the true shelter in our lives. The house I worked so hard to provide was just a structure of wood and stone. The real home exists in the relationships we build, the respect we show one another, and the honesty that must form the foundation of any meaningful connection. I do not regret letting Jessica believe what she wanted for as long as I did. That misunderstanding, painful as it was, ultimately revealed a truth that might have remained hidden for years otherwise. Sometimes, losing what you thought you had leads you back to what truly matters. Andrew and I sit on our back deck this evening, watching the sunset with a newfound appreciation for the simple pleasure of being in good company. This house is more than a financial investment or a piece of property. It is the place where we have grown, fallen, and risen again together. Have you ever discovered that someone in your life had completely misunderstood something fundamental about you? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story about family bonds being tested and strengthened, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Share with someone who might need a reminder about the importance of clear communication in relationships. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the most valuable possessions we have are not the ones with our names on the deed.